Evening, everybody, and how are we doing today? This is another Sunday night live stream on the 22nd of October 2023. Hope you're all well and had a great week. Now, today we're going to be talking about indoor edible growing, indoor edible gardening. You know what I mean, that sort of thing. We'll go through the roll call in just a second, but firstly, I want to make sure we had a bit of a storm come through the UK just the other day. I just want to make sure everybody out there has survived the storm okay. I mean, if you're here today, you've obviously survived it. But yeah, let us know if you had any damage. So first of all, Turbo Stream is out there saying good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. Adrian is out there saying hello. Good evening to you. We have got Ballycillian Allotment Man saying good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Philly SBB is out there saying hello, everyone. Good evening to you. Idaho Gone Girl is out there saying hello. Good evening to you. She goes on to say, I've been AWOL for several weeks. Different things going on. I was worried if you were okay. So glad to see you. Anna Jones is out there saying, evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. We have got Hargrave Gas is out there. Evening, everyone. Hope you've had a great week. Indeed, I hope you've had a great week. We've got Oracle Arts Allotment. Hello, Veg Grower Army. Good evening to you. We've got Anna Jones saying hello. Oh, I've already said hello to Anna Jones. Apologies. Sundays have been a day for the realtor to show me properties without HOA or CCR restrictions. So I've been looking for a new place. Oh, exciting indeed. Idaho. Oh no, I keep reading when everyone says hello to anybody else. Chili Cake, hello everyone from Devon for a change. Oh, lovely. What are you doing down there? Hope you're having a great time. We've got Digwell Green Fingers, Konnichiwa Nawashi-san. No idea what he means. He's been on the sake, I get the feeling. Gary is out there saying hi all. Good evening to you. Hello gardeners in Japanese. There we go. Well, we've learned something there. No, did we pronounce it correctly? Is the word. Anna Costales, hello all from a rainy, wet Montreal. It's been a beautiful day here, but the only day this week it has been nice sunshine. Nicola is out there. Hope you are doing well, Nicola. She says hello, lovelies. I won't say what you messaged me this week as private. If you want to mention about it, then go ahead. Scott says, evening all. Good evening to you. What have we got? Chili Cake says, nice lights, Richard. Yep, I've been playing around with the lights. Although playing around with a lot of things, just trying to get it right. I can change the lights to my normal purple at the flick of a switch like that, which is what I like. Bethan's Kitchen and Garden is out there saying evening all. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream says, must be chilly down there. Richard has a jumper on. It is getting a bit chilly. Yes, I have started putting a jumper on. It's very rare you will see me in a jumper, but I've started to lately because it's just needs it. Just needs it. I think my age is starting to catch up on me, and I'm feeling the cold more as well. My dad is out there saying good evening to you. Bethan's saying hello to Idaho. Turbo Stream says, I walked to the allotment this morning, completely saturated ground with river channels from the rain. No chance of gardening anytime soon. I know how you feel. Exactly. It has been very, very wet this week. And I asked if anybody has had any damage, and this is an example. It is very, very wet, isn't it? Stuart Jackson says, evening, Richard and the Veg Army from a wet Wiltshire. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. We have got Chili Cake visiting family. Just been to see the allotment site that my stepdad is on the waiting list for. That's why she is down in Devon. Fantastic. So I did allude to this. Nicola messaged me earlier this week. Unfortunately, her dad has passed away Monday afternoon. Quite peacefully, I'm pleased to say. But I hope Nicola, and I'm sure everyone is going to send their love and condolences. Hope you are doing okay. As I've said, if you need anything, let us know. We'll see what we can do. Very sad news, I know. Kate has joined saying, good evening, Veg Army. Brian's gone, and Polytunnel saying, hello all. Good evening to you. Jenny Hullett has joined. Hello, everyone. Flooded around us. We are very wet and boggy. Is that in your new garden as well yet, Jenny? Was that not known about, or have I said that as well yet? Chili Kate, all the best, Nicola. Glad your dad went the way he wanted. A lot of love coming in from Nicola there. Yeah, very, very sad news, and always tragic when there's a loss in the family. So I don't want to move on suddenly. I want to respect that, but I've got to move on as well. So Nicola, apologise for being upbeat. This is just when all that happens, you've just got to. Yeah, I'm making it the whole bigger for myself, aren't I? Anyway, right. So indoor edible gardening is tonight's subject. Now, before we get into that, let me just recap on what's been going on this last week. Obviously, we've had this rain come through, which luckily we here didn't get much damage. We had a tree come down just a couple of roads away, and a tree came down on the allotment as well, but no real damage. A lot of rain though, a lot of rain, and our ground is completely saturated. So it is what it is, but we'll be okay. It will drain away, and that's why I've said I go for raised beds. As you've seen in my video I put out the other day about planting the onions, we're on a clay soil, so it does tend to rot away at things quite nastily. Like I said, it could be worse. There's a lot more going on in this world, so a lot of things that could have happened. I'm really pleased to see everyone is sending Nicola their love. I really am pleased to see that. I thank you so much for that. It's always hard, isn't it? Let's try and be as peaceful or as upbeat as we can be for the show. So what I did see Turbo Stream say something. Turbo Stream says some of the small streams were overflowing badly around here, probably 100 mil of rain in 48 hours. It was a lot of rain, wasn't it? I mean, we could do with a rain, don't get me wrong, but it was a lot of rain. Graham Arnold has joined in saying evening all, and there we go. I think we are up with the comments. So let's get into it. Let's get into this indoor edible garden conversation. Now, I think this was Anne in Montreal who asked for this subject. Great subject, I've got to say, because obviously in where she is, and probably the same for Idaho, it's snow, ice, the ground is unworkable outside. So trying to grow your own is pretty difficult. And we're lucky where I am here on the south coast of the UK. We don't really get those really, really cold winters that we tend to get in other places. We're quite mild here, but that doesn't mean we can grow lots of things outside. So I do find myself turning more into growing on our kitchen windowsill or indoors. And my wife Amanda, she was going to join tonight, but she's not now. She was going to start telling me off because I've started clearing the windowsills and started preparing that for our indoor growing sessions. So I think the best place to start off is with microgreens, and I've actually done a sew along video for these microgreens, which is probably a good place to start. Right guys, the sew along this week is to sow microgreens, and this is actually a good one because it tallies up with what we're talking about today. So let me show you what I'm doing. So the obvious thing we need when it comes to growing microgreens is somewhere or a pot to grow these things in. And what I'm using today is these plastic containers. We used to get dog food in these. We gave them a good washout, of course, for Roxy, but I just found them to be perfect for our sort of microgreen growing. So we've got the container. Now for the grow medium, I just use kitchen paper, kitchen paper, tissue paper if you like. And we just pop into there, pop into the bottom. There we go. Nothing difficult about that. Good thing is with using tissue paper, it can be composted come the end of the season. Now what we want to do is just dampen this kitchen roll slightly. Not a huge amount of water is needed. I like to try and make sure it goes everywhere. Give it a couple of seconds just to soak in, and then we're going to sow the seeds. Now microgreens come in a huge different range of seeds. The ones that I'm sowing today is cress, and cress is a very easy one to grow. We all grow it at school, didn't we, in eggs and things like that. Very tiny little seeds, and we just scatter these over. We want to do these quite thickly. In fact, Nada's got that packet finished by my calculations. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, we want it quite thick on there so that they are well distributed, and then we just leave that to one side. Now what I have been doing for the last few days, I've actually been sowing some more cress seeds. So yesterday, these were the ones that I've sown. Not really doing much. They just seem a little bit bigger than the ones we just sown. These are still cress from the same packet. It's just that they're taking on the water and they're starting to expand. On Friday I sowed these ones, and we can just see, hopefully the camera's picking it up, just starting to sprout. So just goes to show how quick they can be. And then the first day, on Thursday, I sowed the first load. I should have done this on Monday, to be honest with you. We can just really start to see that they are really starting to grow. A couple more days, they will be up and ready for harvesting. So pretty quick and easy to grow. But there is a huge different range of microgreens that we can actually grow. As I said, I'm doing cress today for this grow along, but we could be doing coriander, we can be doing cabbage, radish. All we're doing is just getting it to that sprouting stage when it just starts to put on their first leaves, and that's when we start to harvest them. They're not going to feed you in terms of you're going to be able to live off them, but I always believe that microgreens are a great way of just adding a bit more flavour to many dishes and a bit of interest. These will probably go in egg and cress sandwiches, for example, just to add that nice cress flavour. So yeah, please do go give some microgreens a go and let us know what sow along you want us to do next week. Yes, there we go. We have got cress growing as a microgreen. As I said, there's lots of different varieties of microgreens we can use. And what I quite often find is that I like to save some old seeds. So if like my cabbage seeds are going out of date, I will save those. Cauliflower seeds going out of date. Let us know what microgreens you grow in the comments down below. So let's go back to the comments quickly, talking about those. Jenny says, flooded around both houses, old garden wet and now a new garden very boggy. I need to work on that clay. I know how you feel. We've got to really, I've got clay, as you know, we've got to really incorporate lots of organic matter to try and stop it from being so boggy. It takes a lot of time. It is how it goes sometimes, isn't it? Where do we go? There we go. Gary says, on the plus side, my 1,000 litre IBC industrial bulk container is now full. Indeed, yeah, that's the same with water butts, isn't it? They are now full because we've got so much rain that has fallen down and given us. What else have we got? Turbo Stream says, one reason for not overwintering broad beans, they mostly rot in the ground from a cold, wet winter rather than frost. It's a good point. It is a very good point. That's why we got to build. It's one of the reasons I like raised beds on the hard clay soil, but it's also why we got to incorporate plenty of organic matter to try and stop that from happening as well. It takes time, though. It does take a lot of time. Jenny says, I have lots of organic matter for my old garden, so hopefully that's a good start. Luckily, I like a challenge. Excellent, excellent. Getting hold of the organic matter is the tricky thing, hasn't it? Table Stream says, this week I sowed some lettuce as microgreens. Fantastic. Plus the winter, I will aim to use up all those spare seeds I have as microgreens. See, lettuce, that's another good one, actually. In fact, you could almost go, we've got microgreens and then you got salad leaves and stuff that you could be growing on a windowsill in much the same way. Cut and come again. The advantage with microgreens, they could be ready in a few days, a week's time, whereas cut and come again, look in a few weeks. But the idea is there. It's all about trying to use the space more efficiently. Brian's Garden Polytunnel says, my polytunnel has opened up a whole new world for me. It's 3x3, so plenty of space for using half to grow other than tomatoes, peppers and cucumbers completely. And it actually, this brings me up onto something. I mean, we're talking about indoor gardening, ideally inside the house. But if you do have a greenhouse or a polytunnel, then I think it is important to try and use it for growing food throughout the winter. We often use it for tomatoes, peppers, or cucumbers during the summertime. But I think it's important to try and get things growing in there throughout the winter so that we can be growing our salad leaves, for example, and so on. Same with cold frames and things like that. If you've got those, try and use them to our advantage, just to extend the seasons, just to get that better food coming in. Anne says, thanks for this, Richard. So as once the snow comes, we don't see the ground for 6 months. Terrible for a would-be gardener. I can imagine. We really don't have that problem where we have snow here. We really don't. If we get snow, it lasts a day. And it's very rare we get that. But I can imagine how much of a problem it can cause for people like yourselves and in other parts. So it's good to try and find out, actually, if you do have that problem with snow, what you do to grow indoors. Digwell says, nice and easy to grow microgreens. I usually have a punnet on the go. Yeah, an old punnet actually does. I use those white plastic trays that you saw, but a punnet is also a good thing to use, or anything like that. Even the takeaway boxes work as well too. The only thing I would say with microgreens, you're not going to be able to really feed yourself. You're not going to fill up an entire meal with them. But I like to think of them, as I've said, with an egg and cress sandwich. You add a bit of flavour, you add a bit of salad to whatever you're eating, or you might add a bit of crunch to a soup or something. It's just more, a bit like a herb, I guess you could say. Gary says, I'm hankering for an egg and cress sandwich now. I'm sorry about that. And Tilly Kate says, me too. Love egg and cress. There you go. Get growing some cress on your windowsill and get some chickens, and you've got everything you need. Idaho says to Brian, that sounds wonderful with the polytunnel. Completely. It does, doesn't it? Toby Stream says, I have plenty of cabbage, cauliflower, beetroot, and chard to use up, all of which can be used as microgreens. So that's a good thing to use there. Anne has said, I started chickpea, radish, and rapini microgreens. I'm not sure what rapini is. I've never heard of that one. So be interested to know if we call it something different here. Radish, of course, we don't often think about using radish as a microgreen, but you can. Chickpea. Now, chickpea is actually more what I would call a shooting or a sprouting seed, which actually brings me up onto the next thing I was going to mention, our sprouting seeds. So chickpea, they're generally, I guess the best thing to think of when we think of sprouting seeds would be bean sprouts that you might get in a chicken chow mein or something. You know, those sprouts are beans, but they are a great thing. Again, we can grow those on a windowsill. They could be mung beans for your sprouting beans. Chickpea is a good one. Alfalfa, I believe, is one that we can use as well. There's quite a good range of sprouting seeds. What I tend to do, I grow mine in a jam jar. I put the seeds in the bottom, put a piece of muslin over the top with an elastic band, pour water over the seeds, leave it to soak overnight, and then drain it out. Then every day, add a bit of water, swirl it around and drain it out. Within a week, maybe two, we tend to get those shooting seeds that we can eat. I'm actually sending chickpea seeds out in November for members of our supporters club because they're so good. Anna Jones says, another egg and cress fan here. Indeed. Turbo Stream, cheese and pickle sarnie with cress as a garnish. Yeah, exactly. I mean, all these microgreens that we're talking about, not supermarkets, sorry, chefs pay, kitchens, restaurants pay a lot of money for it because they're so desired, yet we can grow them as a gourmet food on our windowsill for next to nothing. So there we go. Idaho says, I'm ordering seeds for 2024. I should use my old seeds for microgreens. Thanks for the reminder. No problem. That's what we're here for. It's the way I like to think of it. Old seeds for microgreens so they don't get wasted. Scott says, love microgreens, but pay a lot of money for them at work. Makes me want to set up a micro-growing business. You're not the only person that has thought of that. Don't need a huge amount of space. You've just got to really be on top of it because they do go over quite quickly. So you've got to be growing them regularly on a daily basis if you're going to do a business and getting them out pretty quickly and keep on top of constantly sowing them. Stuart Jackson says, I will be sowing lettuce and cauliflower this week as long as the water goes back in the greenhouse. All my microgreens will be staying in the greenhouse. Good stuff. Lettuce and cauliflower, great to grow. Of course, are you growing those as microgreens or salad leaves and cauliflowers? Let us know. Toby Street says, my south-facing porch will be used over winter. It gets too hot in the spring, summer. So a porch, we don't tend to think of growing indoors on our windowsills, but a porch, that's a great use. In fact, I'm thinking I could use that in my porch as well. Thank you for the idea there. Digwell says, some of the microgreens I grow, amaranth, beetroot, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, clover, cress, fennel, lettuce, mustard, pea, radish, wasabi. Yeah, lots of different microgreens to grow, all of which have their different flowers. The wasabi adds that nice peppery, strong hit. So does the mustard, and the lettuce has a nice bit of cool. And then what I say is sometimes you take a few of a bit like cut and come again salad leaves, take a few cuttings of these, mix them all together, and you've got a real good mix of different flavors. Great stuff. Bethan says, I find brassicas really good for microgreens. Rocket and herbs seem to take ages to germinate and grow, but brassicas are really quick for me. Yeah. Brassicas are pretty quick to grow. I mean, we're indoors where it's warmer. The difficulty is why we grow these as microgreens as opposed to real plants is that we don't have enough sunlight. But yeah, rocket can be pretty quick. I prefer to use those as cut and grow again, but rocket actually does quite well outside as well in the winter. It seems to tolerate a lot of the cold weather. But you've also hit upon herbs there. Actually, that was another thing that I have on my list of things that we can be growing indoors. Herbs, pots of herbs on our windowsill, be it basil, parsley, coriander, dill. Again, I like to do these all throughout the winter and even into the summer. We'll just have them on the kitchen windowsill where we're ready to harvest them, add them to the meals that we need to use. Again, just building up those growing areas and our foods throughout the winter. Anne says, you might call rapini broccoli. Rab broccoli. Yes. So that's the type that is ready really, really quickly. So excuse me, got something in my mouth. The type of broccoli that's really quickly, a bit like you use it like purple sprouting broccoli. It's small spears, but you can sow and grow them within sort of 60 days. Turbo Streams says microgreens are nutrient dense too. I'm going to use 6 cell trays you get buying bedding plants. Yeah, they are very nutrient dense. So why not? Why not? Digwell says, when you grow normal veg as microgreens and sow them on tissue or coca coir, after you have snipped them off, after you've snipped them all off, plant the tissue in the garden and the non-germinated seeds may well grow. Freebies. Good idea. Didn't think of that. Never thought of doing it. I just usually take that tissue and throw it in the compost bin. But that's a very good idea. That's a good idea. Making your own, almost like seed tapes, isn't it? So there we go. Bethan's Kitchen and Garden. DT Brands have got a seed offer on at the moment. If anyone is after seeds, £1 a packet for certain things. There we go. There we go. DT Brands. And Anna Jones says Mr. Fothergills also have £1 a packet offer at the moment. You do find that a lot of these seed companies will sell microgreens or seeds labeled as microgreens, but I usually think they're probably the most expensive way to buy them because you basically, if it's broccoli, for example, if it's a broccoli microgreen, you're getting a lot of seeds when you buy broccoli anyway. So I think you got just would look at the price of things and work out what it is. And the broccoli, of course, is exactly the same thing, whether it's a microgreen or full size thing. Gary says, how do you eat all these types of microgreens? Just as salads? Um, a good question, actually. Very good question. So, yeah, I tend to use my microgreens as a bit of a flavor, added a bit of flavor, I guess I would say. So, as I said, if I'm having a sandwich, I'll snip a good handful off and use it as like you would in a sandwich. So you might have a cheese sandwich and put some microgreens on top. You can use it as a salad as well, like you've asked. That is one way to use it. A lot of the restaurants use it as a garnish. So if you go posh restaurant and you're eating a nice steak and you've got this little garnish of something on the side, it adds just a bit of flavour. What I also like to do, if I'm having a soup or something, let's say, I don't know, tomato soup, and I've put my tomato soup in a bowl, I then might pick some basil microgreens, for example, and then just put those in the middle of the bowl. It makes it look nice, and it just adds a bit of basil flavour. Great, big, wide range of things we can do with microgreens, and so easy to do. Digwell says, I gave up the microgreen business. Too many hurdles to leap over with the council food regs. I just sell punnets, living plants as a hobby on Facebook now. Yeah, I was worried about the regulations, but when it comes to growing or selling food, it's very complicated. But people do it, and if you want to make a microgreen business, just go do your research beforehand. Stuart Jackson says the old cauliflower seeds will be used for microgreens, but the new for cauliflower. Exactly right. That's exactly what I do. Old seeds for microgreens, new ones for actual growing into the plants that we want. Turbo Stream says, I did sow a tray of cauliflower to overwinter for spring planting, along with multi-sown onions. I tried onions on Boxing Day, but they never did germinate for me. Try again. It's might have been, I don't know. Don't know why your onions didn't germinate. Yeah, got to be worth a try. Jenny says, we have a small double glazed porch. Builders nearly took it off as so small. I stopped them and said, that's my new greenhouse. Will be too hot in the summer, but perfect for spring. Can't wait. I'm thinking exactly the same with my porch, although it does get very cold out there. Scott says, sorrel microgreens are good if they give a good citrus hit. Sorrel is just lovely anyway, isn't it? I love seeing them. But yeah. Nicholas says chickens like the base of microgreens when cut. Another good thing to do, give feed to the chickens if you have chickens and ducks and things like that. Again, I think it's important to give our chickens a bit of fresh vegetables and salads during the winter times as well. So good to see that. What have we got? Turbo Stream says, I sorted out my seeds this week. So many from the podcast club. It took ages. You should be sowing them. Should be sowing them when they come out. And now this actually brings us up to the next point I was going to talk about. Guys, are you using grow lights with microgreens? So this is something that I wanted to hit about. The trouble we have when we grow things in the winter, even indoors, is plants need warmth and they need sunlight, and it's not so much about having been on a bright windowsill, it's the day length that really does make the difference. So on my kitchen windowsill, I don't actually use any grow lights. In the past, if you remember before we came out into the shed, I had in the old studio, behind me, I had a shelf which I had attached grow lights onto, and we were using that to start our plants off. We had heated propagators and things like that. We had the grow lights, which were on for about 16 hours a day. So with the microgreens, I don't feel it's necessary unless you're somewhere very dark to have grow lights, but you would need at least 8 hours of sunlight each day, but they will grow better with microgreens. So Can you hear me, guys? Sorry, my my phone just suddenly my computer just suddenly decided it would turn itself off. It's updated in the background, which is really, really annoying. So I'm just turning it on to get it going for you. But the image on this phone, let's see if it makes any better like that. Just let us know you can hear me. So while I hate it when the computers do this. Why do they decide to update themselves when you are using them? Right, I'm trying to get the computer back on. There we go. Right, computer is back on. I'll log in back into there. So, sorry, what was I saying? What was I saying? Talking about grow lights. Um, I'm just seeing. Yeah, we were talking about grow lights, and I'm just logging back into the computer. So I try and use them. Here we go. Here we go. I'm just going to be switching back over onto the computer again to see what happens. Uh, okay. There we go. Oh, oh, shut up. Shut up. There we go. Sorry. Uh, I don't know why my computer decided to do that. Just suddenly update during the show. I hate it when that happens. I really do hate it when that happens. I have to find out. I have to turn that off for that. Right, we were talking about using grow lights, weren't we, with microgreens? So what I was saying, so yeah, extend the time of the amount of light that they get, the longer hours, to about 16 hours. Now I use this. We spoke about using growing herbs, but also when we're starting our seeds off, I tend to grow those in or start them off indoors during December, January, February, when it's a bit colder in heated propagators, so that they get a better start in life as well, and they don't grow leggy and things like that. The downside with grow lights is you've got to get decent ones, and they of course use electricity, something to bear in mind. But if you have any microgreens or if you have any grow lights, let us know how you get on with them. Digwell says, I planted a few of my 20 by 10 microgreen coir mats on the plot. Loads of veg grew. Excellent. Loads of comments saying about it. So Anna Jones says, if you don't have grow lights, you can use a lamp with an LED bulb for a couple of pots. I have in the past. And in fact, you can actually buy actual bulbs. IKEA sell them, or they used to anyway, that are grow lights that just screw into standard lights or standard bulbs in a lamp. So they're not too expensive, if I remember correctly, but it's something definitely to think about. Digwell says, I use grow lights all year round for microgreens to keep them short and stocky. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, again, this is something that where we suffer with lack of daylight or low light levels, and as I was saying, the length of day as well, that tends to cause many plants to go leggy, where they try and stretch to reach the light. So if you get the grow lights, you grow the plants short and stocky, which is better, much better. I always sort of say, when you even using grow lights, you want to try and get the grow lights as close, as low down, as close to your plants as possible, in order to encourage them to be that short, stocky, ideal thing that you want to grow. Yeah. Anderson O'Brien has joined. Good evening to you. We had a bit of an IT issue just now you missed, so hope you are well. Stuart Jackson says, well done, IT expert added to your CV. Yeah. Turbo Stream says, I use grow lights to start off seedlings. And Nicholas says, I bought a new lot of small lights, may put in the shed after insulated and lined. Fantastic. Yeah. Excellent stuff. Kate says, today we spent a whole day checking out villages we might want to move to. Garden features highly for us. So not really doing much sowing until we know when to move after putting the house on market. Of course, you had trouble last week, didn't you? And are looking at moving. Funny enough, we're not planning on moving, but when we're walking around, I keep looking at houses and seeing the prices and sort of saying we could afford that. It's got a nice sized garden. We're not ready to move, but it's something that we're looking, not looking, but toying with, I guess. Nicholas says, got a load of shelving and cabinets that will be used in the shed for pots, plants, and perlite. It'll be a whole new venture. Keeping it organised is always good. Hargrave says, I have some grow lights, but haven't used them for microgreens. Just seems a bit of cost for such a small output. Good point. Yeah, it is a good point there. I still think microgreens don't really need, I would save the grow lights for seedlings. Microgreens, possibly not. It depends on, if you're trying to grow them to sell, then you might want them. But I still think if you can get plenty of bright light, then you should be okay. And it may be a case that, as I said, I can't put mine on a windowsill, but you might want to pop behind it a white piece of card or a bit of tinfoil to reflect some of that light back for whatever you are growing there anyway. Right, guys, I am going to quickly put up one of our videos. We have got, let's do the mission video that you set, because I really like this one and it'll come apparent why. So let's go to that quickly, and then we'll come back and carry on this conversation. Right, guys, this week you set me the mission of building a new raised bed, and I want to thank you actually, because I went into my area, my wood store where I keep offcuts of wood, and I actually discovered that I had enough wood to build a couple of beds, different sizes, but it made me decide what I'm going to do with this area here at home. So what I've got, these 4 bits of wood that I've used to build this wooden bed frame. 1 metre 10 are the longer bits, and the smaller bits are 90 centimetres. These were left over from when I built the other beds. Now these, in terms of height, these are 220 mil, 22 centimetres, so they're quite tall. They're 40 mil, 4 centimetres thick, so they will last a long time because they will take a long time to rot down. And these are untreated. We spoke about this last week. Because they are that thick, they're going to last a long time. Now the other advantage is that when it comes to building this, all I have to do is screw the screws through the wood into the other. I don't have to have any corner posts to hold everything together, and these will hold together absolutely fine. So that's got the actual bed built, and I've put it into position here. So next to that bed we want at least 600 mil or 60 centimetres of space. I've given it a bit extra, I've gone for 80 centimetres. That way I can get a lawnmower down there and still use it as a walking space. And that'll be repeated right throughout all these beds. So got it in place. What we have to then do is make sure it is all level. I know using an iPhone, but they have levels built in. That is level. So all we've got to worry about now is getting it ready on the inside. Now usually I would be looking to mow this grass low, but because the grass is so wet, the mower isn't going to help. We did have a bed here that didn't have any wooden sides, so the grass has grown through, but you know, we're not too worried about that, because all we're going to do is take a cardboard box that we collapse down and just push that into there like so. I'm not too worried about it going up on the side, so I think we'll just try and roll that down a bit to make it cover this bit of grass on the side here. Easier said than done, he says. There we go. Now just to make sure it's all pushed down and what have you. Yeah, that's good. There we go. So that's all, cardboard is in place. All we would then do now is fill this up with compost. Ideally homemade compost, which hopefully we've got enough to fill this bed up. But keep watching some videos later on and you'll see how we get on. But for now, this mission is completed, and thank you very much for setting this mission. Don't forget to think or suggest a mission for next week as well. Right guys, I'm back to the podding shed. Yeah, really enjoyed that mission. I've got to say, I got a bit of coffee there. I was on the plan to build some new beds anyway. When you set that mission, I went into my wood store and I found some offcuts that made that bed, and there's another one we've made, but that's also set up all the beds that I'm going to be making in the area that I'm expanding into, because they're all going to follow these sizes. So thank you so much for that idea. Really appreciate it, because I didn't actually know that I had the wood to build those beds. I mean, I knew they were there, but I didn't really actually engage the brain to say we're going to build those beds. Didn't have to cut them down or anything, just screw them together. So thank you so much for that mission. There's a chance for a mission for next week. Get your thinking caps on and get suggesting. Gary says, slightly off topic, but does everyone sow seeds at home, and does anyone sow seeds on the allotment? I tend to sow most of mine at home and in the greenhouse or indoors. The only ones I tend to sow in situ, and that could be on the allotment or in the garden, are the root vegetables, the carrots, the parsnips, beetroot, things like that don't really like being disturbed. But mostly everything is sown at home or on the allotment. Jenny says, I've never used grow lights. Nothing against them, just not for me. I just grow seasonally with the season. I find seedlings happier and healthier when grown naturally. Maybe it's the hippie in me. You're not wrong. And I do agree with you. But where I find grow lights come into their own is things like chilies, aubergines, peppers that need that really long growing season, and even for that matter tomatoes. And what I find with those chilies, I start November, peppers will be December, aubergines in January, and they need that long growing season to grow. But if the light isn't quite there, they go leggy. So but just having those grow lights just helps get them ready, that they can go, that they're grown from seed, that they're strong enough come May, that they are able to go out into the garden. Now, I'm not saying that if we left it till March to sow those seeds, they wouldn't be okay. They probably would be okay, but we get a better harvest and that long growing season that those plants need. That's where I feel grow lights come into their own. Bethan says, I have a grow light in a cabinet and it's great for seedlings, but once they grow bigger, I find they suffer from being too close to light, and then I move them to the windowsill, they get leggy. So, yeah. So what's happening? Yes, you are right. When they get too close to the light, they then they almost need a bit more space. So how I set my grow lights up, because I have several of them, I have some that are quite close to the propagator, and then I move them up and up and up, give them all a bit more space as we go along, adjusting the height. It takes a bit of thought, a bit of working out, but if you can adjust the height, it does the world of good. There is some heated propagators with grow lights actually inbuilt, which I really like the idea of, but of course you can't change the height on those. But for starting off your seedlings, great things to do. Kate says, I only use a grow light on my hydroponics, which turned out amazing strong plants. I was worried folks thought I was going to be growing this special herb. Well, hydroponics is actually something I did have on my list. I've got very little experience with growing hydroponics plants. On a whole, it's something I've always wanted to try out, but never got around to trying. We've got some hydroponic kits for young plants for indoor growing from IKEA, where the grow lights came from as well. And I know Kate and Digwell, I think as well. You shared in earlier this year photos with your hydroponics kits, which looked like they were great for starting seeds off and produced really good plants. I've also just seen, I had an email from Bethan about a video, which unfortunately I didn't get in time, but hopefully I can show that next week. But yeah, hydroponics is saying, I don't have much experience with, but share your thoughts on hydroponics and growing indoors with hydroponics. Stuart Jackson says, quick question. Doing our raised beds at schools, we are mixing peat-free compost with topsoil. Should it be 50-50? Thanks, team. I don't see why not. I generally regard it as if that's what you've got. I mean, I do 100% compost personally, but if you haven't got enough compost, then adding topsoil in works great. So yeah, I don't see any reason why 50-50 wouldn't work. Let's see what anybody else says on that. Nicholas says, mission, make a cloche to go over a new bed to extend the growing season. Yeah, could do that. That's an idea. Digwell says, the Spider Farm SF300 LED grow light, 607, costs 9p per day in electric, 16 hours a day. Now, I mean, that 9p a day doesn't sound much, but when you add it up across a month, that's, I don't know, I can't work it out off the top of my head, but I'm thinking 10 days, 90p, that's £3 say a month. So not too bad, depending on how many you've got. And it does depend on, of course, your rates. But the 16 hours a day is something I wanted to say. So I had a hydroponic system in the past that had a grow light on it, but you had to physically turn on and off the grow light with a little button, which annoyed me. I wanted a timer on it, which is why I put all my grow lights on timers so that they would come off and on without me having to do anything. I know that sounds very lazy. You know, how hard is it to turn a button on and off? It's not so much about turning the button on and off. It's so that something, if I forget or if I've got to go to work early or something, it's taking it out for me, not having to do it more than anything. But yeah, timers are a big thing, I think. Thomas Smith said, I sow at home, but mostly direct sow things like beetroot, parsnips on the plot. No greenhouse at the allotment, and it's too far to go up every day. I know how you feel. Gary says, challenge for next week, and sorry for already done this, I'm behind on the podcast, etc. A video tour of your sowing setup / new nursery area. Not quite built, but I will do that once it's built. At the moment, the cloche is the one that I think we could be doing. Digwell says, I had the police helicopter hovering over the garden with the greenhouse beaming like a weed factory. Oh, yes, indeed. Alison O'Brien says, does anyone know where I can get a second-hand greenhouse? I live in the West Sussex area. Have a look on Facebook Marketplace, if you're on Facebook. If you're not, email me and I will try and find some for you. Whereabouts in West Sussex are you? I think I know. I should know. But have a look on Facebook Marketplace. I always see greenhouses free to collect on there if you are after a greenhouse. Just got to go and dismantle them, which isn't too difficult. They're pretty easy to dismantle and rebuild. Bethan says, I can't adjust the height of my grow light due to in the cabinet I'm using, which is why I don't use the grow lights very often. Could you, instead of moving the grow lights, could you move the plants, pop them on like a shelf that you can lower down or something? Just an idea. Or remove shelves to give them lower space. Just an idea. It could be wrong. It's just my thinking. Jenny says, I always add topsoil, fantastic moisture retainer and helps with soil health. Absolutely 50-50 is fine. As for Stuart Jackson. There we go. Digwell says, all my grow lights are on timers. Fantastic. Stuart Jackson says, I only sow seeds at home or school. As school, all the seeds get put in a polytunnel or greenhouse. At home, seeds go in the greenhouse. The compost topsoil is all about cost for the school completely. Yeah, completely. Idaho says, since I'm growing some veg with aero gun, I think I can pop the microgreen trays right next to the aero gun to take advantage of the spillover lighting. Yeah, good idea. Good idea. That lighting is all going to help all those plants. And if you can try and reflect, as I said, one of the ideas that I had for years, and I tried implementing it this year, but it got too hot, was actually an old bar fridge. If you looked at a bar fridge, you'll see that the back, tops, left, right, and the bottom is all silver, and it reflects the light everywhere. And my idea was to use that as a growing station, as somewhere to start seeds off, because it reflects light. The trouble was the seeds in there, it got too hot. Maybe better over winter. We'll try it this year and see how it gets on. But it's great for just bouncing the light around because it's that reflected surface. And that means that plants, because the other thing when it comes to seedlings, if you're doing it on a windowsill, you've got to try and turn the plants every day to try and get an even lighting so that they don't grow leaning towards one direction. So an old bar fridge, I think, is great. It just gets very hot in there. Literally, I had steam pouring out of it. Where are we? Digwell says, start the seeds raised up close to the light on a stack of trays, then just take the trays out as they grow. Yeah, completely. Bethan says, no, layer on the bottom as it is. I need a second area for the next stage. Another growing space. My husband will be thrilled. Yeah, just remind him it's what you eat. It's how you feed yourselves. You know, that's the way to persuade him. And then when he wants another motorbike or something, you can say, "Go ahead, darling." Margaret has shared a couple of links. I don't know if you can see them over on YouTube for Facebook Marketplace greenhouses, I'm guessing, looking at those links. So they're definitely there on Facebook Marketplace and often for free. Idaho says you could have a worse hobby. Right. Indeed you could. Indeed you could. So, hydroponics is one of the big things I think that people are turning more and more when it comes to indoor gardening. I've had very little experience, as I said. But the thing I was also thinking, it kind of goes along with a lot of things we've been talking about with the hydroponics being for the special herbs, shall we say. But I know a lot of the garden shows that I've been attending, especially the press ones, there are people selling grow rooms, and these are like a big tent, and they're a bit like the fridge I was talking about. On the inside, it's all silver. They've got LED lighting. Some are really big, and I've looked at them, and my wife would kill me. She said she was going to join me tonight, so it's a good job she isn't. But she would kill me if I came back with one of those, because they do take up quite a bit of room. And again, these come from the special herb growing places, shall we say, originally. But they are a good idea for starting off seeds because they control the temperature. They've got they can have heating in there. They've got lighting. They reflect the light around. I think my uncle, who's in Canada, actually has some of these in his basement for growing food and stuff like that as well, if I remember correctly. So I know in the UK we rarely have basements, but that's another space to think about and using things like that. Ben says he's a salad dodger as it is. Well, just remind him it's the chilies and stuff as well. I'm sure he would agree. Mylar film, like the space blankets, is good for reflecting as well. Anything silver or white, just to reflect some of that light around, is just going to help really with the light levels that we have. Now, the final thing I have on my list to discuss about this is actual plants that we have growing indoors. And what I mean by that is I have several plants that I consider indoor edible plants. So my turmeric is a good example. We have ginger and we have cardamom, which are grown all year round. They're indoors all the time, but they produce ginger, turmeric, cardamoms for us. Absolutely brilliant to grow as an indoor plant. They need quite a bit of space, but there are other things that we could do on indoor plants. There are some tomatoes, which are, I think, mini bell. They only grow like that big and they produce lots of tomatoes. I wasn't keen on them. I found the skins to be quite tough, but you know, if you are going down this route, this might be what you need to try and do. And chilies as well on a windowsill do quite well. Again, they need a bit of heat to bring them along and do well. But in the winter, if we can provide that heat and those propagators and that light, more importantly, then we can get those early chilies growing. And even overwintered chilies, the thing is, it's getting them to fruit. Lemon trees as well. I mean, lemons benefit from a bit of a chill over winter, so they can come in, but they need somewhere unheated. Most of my house is unheated, to be honest, so we don't have that problem. Idaho says some chili growers over here use those indoor tents to start off their chili plants. Yeah, a lot of people over here use them for chilies, aubergines, and peppers as well. A lot of different plants. They are a great thing to use, as I said. I've seen them. I mean, they are big. Some are like 2 meters by 2 meters, which is as big as this shed. In fact, you could probably build a shed for this sort of thing as well and paint it white and what have you and insulate it. But yeah, Dig Well on That Matter says, if anyone does buy a grow tent, make sure you go for the option with a fan, as the tents get so humid and dampen off is a big problem. That's the same that I found with the fridge that I used as like a growing greenhouse, a cold frame. It got so hot that it had quite damp now. I mean, I opened the door and steam just poured out of it. So damp, yeah, getting the fans going to try and, again, more money and electricity being used, but if you need it, you need it. Remind me where you buy ginger and turmeric. So you can actually grow them from what you buy from a supermarket. You've just got to get the right piece of ginger that has a little different coloured nodule on it, and turmeric as well. But you can get them from you could get them from Wilco's, ginger particularly, or have a look online, and you could buy them in like what do you call them, tubers. That's it, tubers or ribosomes, and you plant those and they perform. Have a look online. I'm sure you can get them in Canada as well. Idaho says Jimmy pickles pepper seeds often show his basement grow room. He uses at least one tent and several shelving units with grow lights. You can see his setup on channel on YouTube. Sounds like a great idea. I mean, if I had a basement, I would love to do that. We don't really have basements here in the UK, but I thinking I could build another shed. I mean, how many sheds does one need? Always a lot. Bethany says avocados are an inside plant. Anyone had luck with these? Yes, earlier this year, I've grown an avocado tree from a avocado stone. Excuse me, that we got from a avocado. And I'm going to be doing more actually next year because they are great. So what I did, we had an avocado one day. I took that stone and I put it into a shallow tray of water, and it cracked within a day. And then a couple of weeks later, there was a root that grew out the bottom. So I then took that stone and planted it into some compost in a pot, and left that to grow, and it started to grow this tree. It's about 6 months old now, and it's about that tall. It's starting to lose leaves, but we're keeping a close eye on it. But yeah, very easy to grow avocado. Whether it fruits or not is going to be the big question. It's possible. I think in London they've had them fruiting, so plenty of warmth and sunlight, they could well do it. Stu Jackson says, my lemongrass will be coming inside in the next few weeks, as the first year I grew them, I lost them. These plants are 18 months old and I don't want to use them. I think it's important to try and bring a lot of our plants into indoors, even if it's in a greenhouse over winter, to try and make the most of it and keep them going. Wilco's are now open online. Yes, they are. They're owned by the Range now, their online shop. So you might still be able to get ginger in the UK from Wilco's, if that's any interest for you. Oh, Anna Jones has actually came up with one that I didn't even think of. And there's always growing mushrooms from a mushroom kit. Seems very easy. Yes. Now, I've said before, I've got a mushroom allergy, so I don't touch mushrooms at all. But they can certainly be grown indoors. They like a lot of a damp area, I believe, but they are almost like a bag. I think Richard Vobe's done them. It was a bag, you add water, set it all up, the mushrooms produce, you harvest them, and off you go. There's quite a few companies out there that are doing mushrooms like that. So yeah, mushrooms. I've got no experience with growing mushrooms other than what I've seen other people doing them. I won't touch them. I'm allergic to them, so I bow down. If anybody has any experience on mushrooms, let us know. Brian says, I succeeded with an avocado last year, but ran it over with my chair. Indeed, yeah. I mean, they are great plants. They are great plants. Really architectural, I would say. And best of all, they can be grown from free. And says, I've got 2 avocado pits sitting here. We'll try it. It's so easy. It's so easy. I must make a video about it one day just to show how easy it is. I was thinking of something else there, and it's just gone completely out my mind. We were talking about mushrooms. Oh, going back to the microgreens, actually. When I was at Gardener's World in Birmingham this year, it was She Grows Veg Garden. Really great garden, I've got to say. On the greenhouse, she actually had these sort of plastic trays that stuck onto the windows and were growing things like microgreens in that. And I've been looking for something similar since seeing that we just stick onto the windows and you grow into that. Again, lifting them up off the windowsill, freeing up more space and getting more and more going throughout the winter. That's something to think about as well. Another way, using our space more carefully. Right, guys, I have got one more video to show you. This is the tool video, and it's a pair of secateurs this week. Right, guys, I'm in my greenhouse today, and we are going to be sorting out my secateurs, giving it the service for this year. So come down here, and I'll show you what we're going to do. What we have here is my secateurs, and this is my preferred brand. It is a brand called Fiskars. What I like about them is they are orange and black handles, which means they tend to get seen quite nicely should you drop them. But because we are dealing with sharp blades and springs, we're going to have to do a bit of health and safety. So goggles and gloves are a must. Now, if I squeeze a handle on these secateurs, they feel very, very rough and don't come apart easy. So before we start, we're just going to give everything a bit of an oil, just a spray oil, just so it makes it a little bit easier for everything to come apart. And I'm just going to squeeze the handle a few times to get that running through. There we go. That is good. So what we want to do next, on most secateurs, most decent ones anyway, they have a nut and bolt that go through the hinge, and we're just going to undo that to take the secateurs apart. Now we want to be careful. As I said, there is a spring involved and they can tend to go everywhere if you're not careful. Luckily, this one has came apart pretty easily, which not surprised with the addition of oil. There we go. Now, because that has come apart, in theory, the spring should now, there we go, the spring has came off as well, because we can spread the handles a little bit wider. Next thing, we're just going to take that bolt out as well. What I advise anybody, if this is the first time you've taken apart your secateurs, what I always advise is you film it or something so you know where all the parts go. Now this particular set of secateurs are an anvil, so they don't bypass on 2 blades. We've only got 1 blade which pushes up against the other. So the piece with the blade on, that's pretty good, but what we want to do is get a nice sharp edge back on it. So what I'm going to do is, with my file, I'm just going to run it along that blade, just trying to keep the edge and back on it, and you can see
as I do this, the blade is starting to become shiny again, which tells me it is becoming sharp because we're cutting into new metal. There we go, that's pretty good actually. That's not too bad. That came together quite nicely. Now, I can take my glove off for this bit and just check. If I run my thumb up against it, I can feel the sharpness. In fact, what I'm going to do is the flat edge, I'm just going to run the blade, the file across that as well to make sure. It needs a bit more. So I'm just taking a sweeping action on the blade. Trying to maintain the angle of the original blade. There we go. That's much better. So it's worth getting rid of any rust as well with a bit of sandpaper or metal wool or anything like that. Luckily, yeah, there's a bit of rust on this, but I'm not too worried because I reckon with a good oiling that will all come out. So what I'm going to do now is put this secateurs back together in reverse order. Now, looking at the spring as I put the spring back, the spring is actually quite rusty. Unfortunately, I don't have a spare one of these, so that would be something to think about. If your spring is rusty, it might be worth ordering in a spare spring when you look at doing this. They're usually pretty easy to get hold of. There we go, that's the spring back in. Nut goes back in. And then what we want to do, the bolt as well, nut and bolt. Tighten it up. And there we go. So the final thing I'm going to do now is just give this another good oiling, just to make sure everything is well oiled and protected. And then we'll leave that to dry and it is good to go. Right, it's getting warm in here, so it is time to head back to the studio and carry on with this live show.
There we go. Yeah, secateurs. I always like to take them apart to sharpen them and clean them. It makes life so much easier having sharp secateurs, and maintaining your tools is so important. As I said, each week I'm going to do a different tool, so that's going to be my choice. I'm going to have something I can choose anyway. And I can see actually quite a few people what we got. Anna Jones says, "This is what I need. Mine are in a dreadful state. So easy to do. It, you know, they didn't come out perfect, but they're going to last a bit longer. Next year, I might have to replace that spring, and that's fine. I know that." Gary says, "I never thought that I could do that kind of maintenance, but we'll try now. So easy." So easy to do. Idaho says, "I like tools with replaceable components. I hate throwing tools away." I'm with you. I'd rather maintain and repair. You're welcome. Chili Kate says, "Thanks for that, Richard. Very informative. You are welcome." Digwell says, "With bypass secateurs, you can adjust the blades as well." Yeah. What else have we got? So Stuart says, "As a forest teacher, nice to see you had gloves on, setting a good example." I forgot to pull them back off when I took them off, because I you know, when I was a scout and we were sharpening knives, you run to see how if it was sharp enough. I took it off for that. You can't do that with gloves on. I should have put them back on after that, to be honest with you. But yeah, you run your thumb over, not across, but over the blade to see if it is sharp. It's probably not the correct way, but it's the way I was always taught how to check for sharpness. Right, so where do we go? Back at these comments. Digwell says, "Wilco have rhubarb online for 15p. Fantastic." I am I grew some rhubarb from seed this year, funny enough, and they did really well. We've got a couple still at the moment. I grew loads of rhubarb. My mum was taking them to car boot sales to sell them for £1 each, and they sold. So growing rhubarb from seed, really, really easy. Going to be doing that again next year. Gary says, another random off-topic comment. You did a Veg Grower Podcast episode, a tour of Bethan's garden, I think Stuart's and Richard Vose and some others. I love these tours. Do more, please. I'd love to do more of them, actually. It's just finding the time to go out while looking after the garden and the allotment. But yeah, I really want to do more tours. I've always wanted to do more tours. Finding the time and finding people that are happy to do it as well. But yeah, it's a bit late in the season this year, but next year I will make a list of people we want to go and see and try and get that going. What else have we got? I think, have we caught up with the comments? No, I just hit the thumbs. Great love tonight. Yeah, please do hit the like, please do hit the follow, please do hit the subscribe, and click the notifications so that you know when we go live. Please do. It really does help, and always happy with it. Digwell says triggers cutters had in 20 years, 8 new blades and 5 new handles. Yeah, absolutely. When we get to the hoe, we're going to be changing the handle on the hoe. But yeah, it is a bit like that, isn't it? 5 new blades, 5. But it's the fact that you can actually take these things apart to fix them and keep them going. So plenty of things to do. Idaho says, yes, I test for sharpness with my thumb. It's how I observed my dad test for sharpness. Absolutely. It's how I've always done it with my knives as well. I know it possibly isn't health and safety wise. I don't know, but it's how I was always shown to test for sharpness. Richard, I have loads of Supporters Club rhubarb plants, but can you have too many? Not in my house. No, I'm with you. I mean, rhubarb is one of those things. We always have so much rhubarb in the freezer and what have you, but it's so delicious, isn't it? And it's so easy to grow. And people love it. People do love it. As I said, if you have a lot of rhubarb plants that you've grown from seed, people do seem to buy them quite cheaply from car boots and stuff as well as another little idea. Nicola says, maybe come to the farm next year. Yes, Nicola, that is one place I really do want to come. Have a look at your farm, a few others and what have you. I'll write a list out of all these things. Get out and about. Hopefully I'll have a bit of a... It's because I can only really do weekends that I struggle to get out and about with, but I do want to go more allotments and gardens. Alison's given us the thumbs up as well. Right, one more thing I need to do is to show you the photos that have came in this week. These are all from our group, actually. So our Facebook group, that is. So let's have a quick look at those. Now, Stuart, we've been talking about rain. He shared this picture of all the rain around his shed, his greenhouse. There's a lot of it, as you can see. I think we've all had that trouble this week. It's certainly in the UK anyway. But it's the weather, isn't it? We cannot control it. We've just got to live with it. He's also harvested the last of his chilies. Look delicious, don't they? I've got to say, we've done well with chilies again this year, so always good to see. Next, yes, so a few photos posted from Digwell that he sent me, but I didn't get received for last week's the alternative veg. Excuse me, the alternative veg grower show. This was the most obvious cheat for the heaviest tomato. Sticking a potato on there to make it a cheat, make it heavier. His most overgrown mint, as you can see, that is pretty overgrown, but that's what mint does, isn't it? It just grows and grows and grows. The wonkiest carrot, although more of the wrong color, then it looks like a parsnip, doesn't it? But you look at the leaves are definitely carrot. So interesting, very interesting. Largest tomato as well. That's a pretty good size. So really, really good to see that, Digwell. Well done. Chili Kate sent this beautiful sky photo on her allotment. This was last Sunday. Looks absolutely lovely, doesn't it? We miss those blue skies already after this week. And then Nicola has also been making use of an old frame. You know, we all love recycling, don't we? And I'm not sure, Nicola, let us know what you are doing with this frame. That'd be great to hear. Now, Bex, this was actually a comment to a video that Scott shared of his allotment tour. And that's what he started with. You know, a blank canvas is always good to see. And I've always said it's good to see where you come from. Good to see what you started with and reflect on how far you've come. So great to see. Keep sharing those photos. You can post them in our Facebook group, send to me via social media, or email me, richard@veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. So post in our Facebook group, send to me via social media, or email richard@veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Reach out if you have any problems. I'm always available if you can get through to me, that is. Nicola, we are all coming, says Jenny, down to Nicola's farm. It would be a bad idea. Chili Kate says, how far down are you, Nicola? I can't remember where she is. Hopefully she will let us know. She's probably writing loads of comments because we got loads of things to ask her. Digwell says, I've sown a load of lettuce in my veggie pod indoor kitchen garden, already 2-inch tall after a week. So coming back to this main subject, and we've got a few minutes to go. So yeah, the main subject was indoor gardening, veggie pod. I think this is a hydroponic system, if I'm not mistaken, with grow lights already growing in. If anybody has anything you want to add, then please do let us know, and it'd be useful for those that are asking about this. But lettuce in the veggie pod indoor, already 2-inch tall after a week. Fantastic stuff. I keep looking at those veggie pod indoor kitchen gardens and trying to work out if it's worth buying one, because I think I like veggie pod a lot, the outdoors, but in the indoor kitchen it's quite a commitment. So love to find out more about it. Idaho says those are great pictures, fantastic. And Gary says thanks for all your pictures, they are great. Yeah, please do keep posting your pictures. We were a little bit low this week, but I made something of it, and more pictures would be fantastic. Great photo, says Jenny. Not a hydro, Richard, a mini indoor version of the outdoor. Oh, okay. That sounds interesting. I might have to look into one, because I think that would be a great thing. I mean, I know you talk about them quite highly. You talk about, like me, you talk about VeggiePod quite highly as well. So, yeah, yeah, I might look into that as well. The mint was awesome to dig well. Yeah, it does get big, doesn't it, mint? I absolutely love mint. We've got a couple of sinks full of mint in our garden, and it just grows and grows and grows, doesn't it? Idaho says, since I started growing in the aero garden, I grow lettuce and I have good success growing in winter. Is the aero garden a bit like the veggie pod? It's not. It's like a growing system for indoors with grow lights and things. I know you've mentioned it before, or is it a hydroponic system? Digrat says, all gone now, but blew over in the wind, talking about that mint. Right, guys, so we also need to get some thoughts for next week's show. I'm going to bring over my notepad so I can make these notes. We've already sort of worked out the mission is to make a cloche, which is excellent. We need seed to sow. The tool I'm going to do, and a subject for next week as well, if you've got any ideas. I've got a few ideas, but I'll leave it over to you guys to think of something. So the mission is going to be making a cloche. So I've got a few ideas on what I can do with that. I might make a few different ones for that. Idaho says AeroGarden is an indoor hydro system with lights. So that's a good idea then. And Digwell says, I have a few error guns, but they are no longer supported in the UK. Spares cost a small fortune now. It's annoying when you buy something, you're really invested in it, and then you can't get the spares. Not that you expect them to break down, but you want something just to last or be able to repair, especially if you like something. I think I said my secateurs, great pair of my multi-tool, my garden multi-tool, sorry, great piece of kit. One of the screws have gone missing and I cannot get the replacement for it. Annoying. Well, that's a coffee finished after nearly an hour and a half of making it. Idaho says, oh my gosh, that's too bad, talking about the lack of support. Aerogun is like Digwell's let pot. Gary says, so have you done your onion sets yet? If you look at a video I put out yesterday, yet my onion sets are there. But I can still do one for the live stream if everybody agrees with onion sets. We've got onion from seed, which I've got to prick out this week, actually. But onion sets I could do next week if everybody agrees. Or if anybody else has ideas then or anything else, let us know for that. I know sometimes putting you on the spot like this is a bit tricky, but we want to try and build it up and make it more engaging. Gary says, sorry, behind on media. There's a lot of it. I know. It's tricky at times to keep up. Onion seeds for me this winter, fed up with sets bolting. That's kind of the thing I put out on the video yesterday. A lot of people saying about that as well. So good stuff. Anna Jones says, a good podcast called On the Ledge by Jane Perrone about indoor gardening, houseplants, greenhouses, hydroponics, lighting, etc. Also on YouTube. Yes, I've known Jane and her podcast for quite a while because me, her, Lee, and a couple of others were some of the original podcasts. First time I met Jane last year at an event, and we had a lovely chat actually. So yeah, absolutely. Check out her On the Ledge podcast. One of the ones that has been going nearly as long as me on the podcast world. Very rare, I know. Jenny says, soil health and structure, winter mulching in preparation for the winter, insects and wildlife to help our veg growing. Winter mulching, it could be a good one. Soil health and structure, winter mulching. Winter mulching. I like the idea of that, actually. Winter mulching. Yeah, I'm thinking winter mulching might be a good subject for next week. You said a few weeks ago, and I'm doing both this year to test. Yeah, it's always good to test. I always think this great thing we are able to do these days is test these things out and see what does best. My overwinter onions were a disaster, leaf miner or bolted. Now, this is again, I think Turbo, was it you that commented and said that they bolted too wet and rotten? This is a great thing, isn't it? With YouTube and what we do, because we're all in different areas, different parts of the world. As I said, I grow overwintered onions, but my clay soil does make it a little tricky for them not to rot, especially if we get a wet winter. Whereas a few other people have sort of said it's too wet for them, so they don't bother. Whereas other people have said, we do it fine. But it's all down to the different soils and what have you. So yeah. Winter mulching is good. I think the winter mulching is going to be a good subject. So that's that on the list. Yeah. What have we got? That was Gary who said winter mulching. Digwell says, so my garlic this week due to pressure from the Veg Grower Army. Last time, if not a good harvest in 2024. So what I think the secret with getting good garlic is one, stowing it deep, 10 centimeter deep, 4 inches, if you can. On a clay soil, it's not so easy, but also giving it a good feed makes all the difference, and a good mulch as well to hold in some of that moisture and get that cold temperature to split it. Although it's only 10 degrees we need for it to split, below 10 degrees for something like 2 weeks. Otherwise, you end up with just a solid bulb of garlic. But yeah, I reckon, I'm hoping you're going to get a decent sized garlic. I mean, I'm happy with mine, so I do it every year. But let's hope it happens. Jenny says, I will be sowing pink panther onions in spring. So impressed with this year's harvest. They are absolutely delicious and store well. Yeah, we're going to be sowing some onions in spring as well to try and make the most of those. Tommy Stream says, we get cold, wet winters here. It's the rain that seems to affect things. Again, it's about building that soil up to try and get the free draining that we need for a lot of our plants. Did you suffer with rust, Digwell? A good question. I mean, I always suffer with rust, but you just got to live with it, haven't we? Idaho says, what works good for some doesn't work for others. I've only had 1 year of success with onion sets, and they turned out to be Cipollini onion. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. That's why I've always said everyone does something different. It doesn't mean they're right or wrong. It just means they're different. Digwell says, only a bit, not a crop stopper. And then he says, no, I oil my joints. Did you use manure to get your garlic big? I use compost personally. I try and incorporate compost into the soil to get and if I can add manure to the compost, of course, then I can. The trouble I've had in the last few years, we've not been able to get manure onto the allotment so easily, so I haven't been able to add much. In the past, when I was on the original half of the plot, certainly, we had a load of well-rotted manure that I added and built the beds up, which is why garlic seems to do better down there. But that's why I keep saying I've got to build the soil levels up in the beds to get it to a decent size. Right, have we got everything? The seed, it looks like it's going to be the onion sets for next week, so I'll put that down here. But it is 7:30. So this has been really another great chat. I've got to say, guys, I love it when the subject seems to get everyone talking and thinking, and this is what we want to do a lot more of. So thanks so much for your input, guys. I say this all the time. We couldn't do this show without you. It is your input that makes this show. So next week, 6 p.m. on the Sunday. Just a reminder, our clocks go back an hour. So we might be an hour later if you're not in the UK next week. Just to make that a bit clear. So it will be 6 p.m. UK time. But that might be, would it be an hour later? Yes. Just to make sure, just so everyone is aware if you're not in the UK. So we're going to be talking about winter mulching. Going to sow some onion sets and make some cloches. So let's quickly go through the comments and then we'll get out of here. Jenny says, I grow garlic in my planters. Worked well. I covered them with snow and very wet. Good idea. I'm doing a garlic trial this winter. Excellent stuff. What I always say with garlic, I save the biggest bulb and replant that so it tailors itself to my conditions as well. Graham says, seed works great for me. Won't bother with sets anymore. Idaho says they were great onions, just not what I was expecting. Nicola says, thanks for the company as I pack. Hope we've brought a smile to your face today, Nicola, and I hope you are doing okay. Bye, everyone. Have a great week. If you want manure, come here, says Adrian. Hey, we could do with it. I could really do with it, to be honest. Idaho says it's been a great live stream. TTFN. Cheers all, and so on and so on. Yeah, so this has been an absolutely fantastic chat. Really good to get your ideas. Please do post your friend videos. Beth and I will use your video next week. But yeah, great to chat. Now let's get our setting up so I can get out of here. And that is it. Right, guys, you take care. See you again